you. I'd like to call us back from closed session to open session at 7:03. And at this time, we have nothing to, well, we did our roll call. Sorry, we have nothing to report out on closed session. So we're going to continue on to our next item on our agenda. That's later. No. Gotcha. Wrong page. Okay, this meeting is being recorded for live streaming and archiving on the district YouTube channel. There's nothing to be reported out on closed session. And so we're going to, oh, it's not down below? Oh, I thought it, okay. Okay, we have some items that we are going to report out on. And the items regarding 4.3, in case of student matter 22007, 22008, 22009, 22010, and 22010. We're going to, do I have a motion to approve what we discussed in closed session about these matters?
I'll move that we approve the recommendations on the stipulated expulsions as recommended.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Moss.
Abstain.
Okay, Trustee Ferrucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Grubbs. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now we're going to do our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as written with the amended agenda changes of the MOUs that are in item, 13.1, so as amended with those changes.
I move that we approve the agenda as written with the amended sections.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Moss.
Yes.
Trustee Ferrucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Young.
So for the highlight this evening, I'd like to welcome Ms. Lewis, principal, our awesome principal at Liberty High School. And she has some wonderful news to share with us. Welcome, Principal Lewis.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening, Madam President Zeta, Superintendent Dr. Young, school board members and cabinet and the rest of our community. My name is Kimberly Lewis. I am the proud principal of Liberty High School, and I'm here to share with you tonight our highlight about how Liberty High School approached bringing back our students to in-person learning and how we build community for our students there. So we knew that we needed to address the multiple layers of trauma that our students may have experienced during distance learning. And we knew that it could have been social emotional and it also could have been academic. So as a staff, we sat down and we pinpointed what are the strengths of Liberty High School. And we came to the conclusion that first and foremost, we do an excellent job. My teachers and staff do an excellent job of building positive relationships. We recognize and want to put our students' voice first. Thirdly, we really wanted to bolster and pull up our social emotional supports. And finally, one of the best things I love is finding joy. So under building positive relationships, from the start, we started using the power of art and trauma-informed care practices to help students return to in-person learning. I don't know if you guys can see, but we have a picture. We used the parking lot to have circle time where we talked about getting to know each other in a safe space. We partnered with, and still continue to partner with Arts Benicia and the power of art to heal. And we also saw a time to connect with our students. Our teachers worked tremendously hard to make sure they know the students' names quickly, what's their favorite ice cream, what would they like to do past high school, like what's their dog, everything, just to get to know kids and finding time to go out and be more than just in the classroom with them. Student voice is a big one. So we have advisory classes, and I ask that representatives from each advisory sit down with me outside in a circle and talk about what are some things that how students can help support other students on campus. From our reach data, we looked at that. Our teachers do an excellent job connecting with our students, but there's a disconnect. Students don't feel like they're connecting with their peers. So some of the suggestions they came up with: create assignments that help students discover each other. I love the quote, discover. Be nice to each other and check in with one another. And we created this Be Kind shout out board, and it's starting to grow and grow and grow with more post-its. They felt it was a safe way to communicate. They're still kind of shy, but some of the things I encourage you to come by and just take a look at amazing things that students are saying to each other. Also, we're having students take ownership. Our hallways, like during COVID, were sad. Nobody was there. They were lifeless. And now students are planning and designing activities that create a sense of belonging. Students are articulating how they learn best and how we're modifying projects to meet their needs. If you walk down our hallways now, we have, at one time it was leaves, now it's snowflakes with words of encouragement to each other. And they're constantly asking, can we put this up? Can we make this our own? So that idea of liberty is not mine, it's not yours, it's the students, and they've absolutely put their stamp on it. SEL supports. So this year we're very excited that we have a new addition to our group as our mental health clinician. Her name is Erica Candido. She's amazing. The kids connect with her. She's already started small groups and one-on-one sessions with our kids. We have a wonderful mentor program. I would shout out to Rick Small and his mighty army. 78% of Liberty High School students are assigned a mentor or a trusted adult. They have the option of saying no, no, thank you. But many times kids come up to me and say, hey, is my mentor coming today? And we find it a huge asset to have just another friendly, supportive face walking our halls. Sources of strength. We have several kids now trained in the Sources of Strength program, and we're looking to launch, fingers crossed, within the next week, our first events for Sources of Strength. And our wellness center is starting to shape up. I personally, if you guys ever want to have a moment, it's a great place just to sit. The lights are great. The music is nice. It was decorated and put up by our students. So once again,
I wonder who had something
I
to do
wonder
with that.
who. She did the lights. But once again, it's a great place to decompress, take a breath, and where we're starting to push in more activities and teachers bringing their kids in there to experience it. Our next thing, and finally, is finding joy. We find that building community can't just take place in a classroom while you're sitting in a desk. We have to get up and interact with our kids. So we've created activities and events to get to know each other. If you ever come during our break, it is a fierce basketball game when it's not freezing outside. Fierce basketball games going on out there. We have had advisory competitions where we had chalk art competition. It was beautiful to see, amazing talent that we have at Liberty with art. And one of the things that kids really took off with this is the thankful tree. It's really hard to see. They created that their own. They designed it, drew it. It's almost 3D-ish. That all those little leaves are little shout outs of what they're thankful for. Some of them said their family, some of them said their friends, Liberty, some place where like they're just thankful that they have their home and their mom and dad. So that was really cool, ways that we tie in kids taking ownership and building that community piece. And it brings me joy. So it's a little bit for me too. So just as an acknowledgement, I want a huge shout out to my teachers and staff and all the other supporting people that come to Liberty to, who work tirelessly to put my students first. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lewis. It's always good catching up and seeing what's going on at Liberty. It's definitely, it's a wonderful campus.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we have our student reports, and we have Alice Wells joining us from Liberty High School.
Good evening. First of all, Ms. Lewis, I liked your speech. So, good evening, President Zeta, Superintendent Dr. Young, and fellow trustees and cabinet members. Like he said, my name's Alice, and I go to Liberty. And so far, Liberty's off to a good start with our second semester, and we're very proud to announce that 3 more seniors have graduated early. We are very proud of them, and we wish them the very best. We would like to welcome our new transfers to Liberty High School. There's a lot. We hope that you feel a part of our school community soon. During the holiday season, Liberty High School held a canned food drive to help support our local food bank. We are excited to say we collected over 280 pounds of food. According to the food bank, that equates to 233 meals. We'd like to thank everyone that contributed to this great cause. We want to congratulate Ms. Sauter's advisory class for winning back Liberty, the Eagle. You know, the one that we won in the beginning, and then Pound thought that he could take. He can't. We're planning another advisory team competition for February, and we'll keep Liberty. So thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Alice. You're great. You're so much fun to listen to. Thank you. And if you would like to step out at this time, we'll let you do that. So thanks again for being here. You're welcome.
Have a good one.
So there's nobody here from Benicia High School this evening, so we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Young.
I want Alice to do my report. Thank you, Alice. Just a quick report for me, welcome everybody. I just want to thank everybody out in the field, all of our employees, teachers, all departments, just taking it day by day, right? It's the best we can do as we're, working our way through the pandemic and certainly the surge. The bright spot, we're able to keep our schools open, so that's a big deal. But it's hard. It's not easy, and just hats off to everybody, hanging tough through this. And the superintendents meet with Dr. Matias, the health director, on Fridays, and he doesn't have a crystal ball, and he didn't say there were any guarantees. But one of the things that he said that I thought sounded somewhat hopeful is that he said it looks like we might be at the peak in this surge, and then he is thinking again, no crystal ball, but that we might exit this surge quicker than the ones we have in the past. So we'll see. I'd like to hang on to that and hope that happens. But again, just thanks to every single employee out in the field, just making it happen for your kids and each other one day at a time. So thanks.
Thank you. Now it's board reports, and I don't have anything to report out. Does anybody else? There you go, Dr. Moss.
Yes, I do. I was able to attend a screening yesterday evening that was put on by the Solano Health Equity Committee. And so they showed the film called Resilience. And so the film Resilience speaks to some of the trauma that our youth are actually experiencing like every single day. It also speaks to the trauma that sometimes adults have that we carry that we just don't really think about. And so it was facilitated by Supervisor Aaron Hannigan, and then also Sassoon City Council member Wanda Williams. They had a really excellent panel. One of the panelists was Jamila Haniff. She has a nonprofit called Watch Me Grow. So she does a lot of things for parents in the community by bringing together resources and things like that. So this particular video features Surgeon General Nadine Burke-Harris. And so she speaks to some of the research that's been done over the years that really, again, tries to address these areas of trauma. So I really appreciate the presentation because you are addressing those issues that, that unfortunately our kids are experiencing. Not everybody, but, our kids are, they're all trying to do what they need to do to be successful. And so the better that we are about providing resources for them to help them, the better. And again, it also speaks to some of that those unhealed experiences that we have as adults. And they kind of go through this series of questions that they ask, and it's like a Richter scale of 0 to 10. So some of the things that they ask you in this questionnaire is around emotional abuse, physical abuse. So there's just a lot of, there's a lot of areas that it kind of focuses on. But anyway, that was it. So it's good.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Any of our other board members, Mrs. Grubbs, Ms. Furchy, Mr. Maselli? Okay, Mrs. Furchy.
So I had the privilege of attending 2 of my committee things this past couple of weeks, and I thought I'd like to share out with everybody. The first one I went to was Valero. Valero, it was their city meeting that we had, and what they did is they shared a recent incident that occurred and the process that was being engaged in order to be able to support the community. He also shared out all of the fundraising and distribution of funds that were being given to all the various groups within the Solano County. Additionally, we had a kind of an organizational meeting. So our next meeting will be February 8th. And we talked about how to restructure some of our meetings there as well, so that right now, the way we're set up, the public can come to one meeting in December. So if there's questions or things they want to learn about the refinery, that's their opportunity to come. So one of the discussions that we had in our small committee meeting was to giving the community a second meeting. So after my next meeting in February, I'll be able to report if everybody approves of it. But we were looking at increasing the number of meetings to 6 meetings a year instead of the 4, and adding a second community meeting so that, like, I don't know, one proposal was maybe June and December, so that we could kind of break it up a little bit and give people more of an opportunity to talk, because we found that there really isn't much. We say it's a community meeting where we can educate them on some aspect of the refinery, or the refinery can educate them. I don't, I sit there. But then they can ask questions. So we were thinking we need to give them more time to ask questions or make comments or whatever, but to do it twice a year. So anyways, that's up for a vote, and that'll be coming up on my next meeting, so I'll let you know when that happens. So, but just a reminder to everybody that they're on the Valero website, you can go on the Valero CAP, and you can always get the latest reports and updates. They keep putting out to the community, so I hope they're hearing that. And then also, everything is also on the city website, and it's under the fire department. They also keep all the reports and incidents. So we're trying to keep as much information out there for the community as they can. The second committee that I attended was our facility bond committee, which they will be bringing to us some information soon. It was some pretty exciting news. And I'm not going to take too much of Tim's bubble, but one of the things we asked him when we first passed the bond was to augment that $49 million with as many different pots or grants that were available as we possibly could, so that we can get the biggest bang for our buck and do the best we can for our kids. So they had some pretty impressive figures that they were sharing with us, still a little bit tentative, but what it's sounding like is they've made that $49 million into about $79 million with all the money they've augmented. Is that right, Tim? 79? So, I mean, they've been working really hard at taking what we could get and then putting in all kinds of application and reports. So we were pretty excited about that. I was very proud of them because that was one of the things we talked about is obviously the bond couldn't do everything, but if there were ways and avenues that they could augment that money, wouldn't that be exciting? And then we could do more for kids and teachers out there. So I thought that was pretty exciting. And again, they have a lot more detail, and Tim and Roxanne will come to us when they're ready. So those are the two committees that met this past week, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fergie. Mark? Mrs. Grubbs? Nothing? All right, then we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 10, which are comments from members of the public. BUSD has moved to in-person board meetings. We ask that the public who wish to attend, including those who wish to address the board, wear a mask at all times. All functions of the board meeting, including public comments, will take place in person. Members of the public may address the board at a regular meeting on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Speaker cards are available at the back table. Please note the item that you wish to speak to and submit a card to the board secretary. The board president will call open session, public comments not on the agenda, Government Code Section 54954.3 during the public comment item. Comments for items on the agenda will be called during the specific item. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker, or the board may limit the total time to 20 minutes per item. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. Please be reminded to keep your comments respectful, as children or students and children may be watching the board meeting. Thank you. So I do have a couple of public comments, and the first one is Michelle Chapman. Thank you.
Good evening, board members, district staff, parents, and other community members. I come tonight first as a parent of a first and fourth grade teacher, or first and fourth grade student at Robert Semple, but also as a first grade teacher at Semple for the last 9 years. I will tell you tonight I want more from my teaching colleagues, students, and staff. I first ask that you consider the importance of integrity in the business of working with people. That is what we all do every day. It's about relationships, not policy or money we have or don't have. My own children and all the students at Semple, the families, teachers, and staff deserve that you do what is right first and foremost. In this time of COVID, I know you are trying, but as a teacher, I don't see or feel the same effort from you that I feel from every teacher and staff member at my site. We take care of you and our students so much. My teachers at Semple feel like we really are not cared for very much by our district or are important, including my own colleague tonight that will talk, Jamie, who just needed to know from you that his family would be taken care of. In addition, our district hosts summer school, and our site has hosted it many years. We did it this summer, and afterwards, our site looked run down, worn out, and it was a mess. When our first day of school was 3 days away, we had one sub-custodian come for maybe about 4 hours to help. Otherwise, our own custodians were left to clean up everything and get our school ready. They even came on the weekend and worked past required hours to make sure our school was ready, along with teachers, staff, our principal. And again, we didn't get the promised support. We were left on our own to be ready for the first day of school. The inequities are glaring to us at Robert Semple. Our facility is now probably one of the oldest with many needed repairs. things have gotten so bad. We only have 2 working bathrooms last week for a day, and today the girls' bathrooms all were not functioning and they had to use an adult bathroom. We were told by maintenance that the plumbing will be fixed this summer. Why does Semple continue to get less with more needs? We serve the most Title I students of the elementary sites, but our discretionary funds are the smallest besides Farmer. How does that make sense, and how is that equitable? We have more students of color, more EL students or multi-language learners, and more SPED students than all other elementary sites. Our site psychologist has the biggest caseload with some of the most challenging students for the elementary schools. She also serves all the preschools in the district, but now she will be pulled to serve Farmer Elementary 1 day a week. That's not equal, let alone equitable. Our technology is another issue. While a lot of sites have one-to-one technology, our TK and kindergarten students don't have computers. They have 6 iPads for 24 to 26 students. And there are at least 5 teachers that I can say that don't have a well-working or any projector in their classroom, including my 3rd grade teacher who had to buy a speaker so that her students could actually hear.
Mrs. Chapman, I don't want to cut you off, but I have to cut you off because it's been well over 3 minutes. Thank you for sharing the information that you have.
And I really appreciate it. I will come back because I really want you to know what is going on at Semple, and I appreciate you listening.
Did you want to leave your list with us? Or do you, because we're happy to take that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our next person, Jamie Cairns.
Hey folks, I'm Jamie Cairns. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Robert Semple. My wife Jennifer is a 3rd grade teacher at Joe Henderson. We had a pretty somber holiday break, a break that we had to pretty much accept the cold realization that the values of this school district do not align with the values of our family, and that our journey as teachers, at least in this iteration, may be coming to an end. You're going to announce tonight the decision to reinstate sick leave for teachers who contract COVID, and I'm here to make sure that there isn't anything omitted from what you discussed tonight, as my wife and I had the extreme displeasure of, and I'm sure along with other teachers, of being the test case for this. I started showing symptoms on October 1st. Through close contact tracing with every BUSD, Solano, Kaiser, anyone, it was pretty much determined that I contracted COVID in my classroom. I had mild symptoms, and I thank the board for that because I was able to return to school vaccinated, double vaxxed and boosted. In spite of that, I got very sick. I had to return to work before I was completely even well. I'm burning my sick days. I'm still not 100% well. But after I returned to school, I had to begin the process of contacting BTA about getting our sick days recouped. To be clear, I'm talking about 15 sick days between my wife and I. I'm not an accountant, but I'm sure that's a few $1,000s. We were not asking for anything more than that. I was told we had to go through workers' comp to get that. And basically over the next 2 months, I had what I would consider 3 jobs: trying to get well, trying to teach my students, and dealing with workers' comp. And needless to say, this affected my ability to be fully present with my students. I don't have time to go over all the details of what we ran through because I know you're timing everything closely. But I'd be glad to elaborate to anyone about the 90-minute Zoom meetings with investigators. I'd be glad to elaborate about the 30 pages of paperwork we were asked to fill out. I'd be glad to talk about the representative who hung up on me when I would not tell him the name of the 10-year-old child that I potentially contracted COVID from. The amount of man hours that was wasted on this, it was a tremendous waste of resources. At no point did anyone from BUSD contact my family saying, you know what, you're going to be taken care of here. That is until after January 10th when my wife's claim was denied. After all, she didn't get it from she didn't get it from work. I did. I gave it to her. So from our point of view, this pretty much looked like, let's see exactly how much chaos sicking an insurance company on this pair of teachers will cause. Let's see how much abuse they'll tolerate. And if it's really, really bad, we'll take care of it then. Now, I don't really think there's any secret cabal of administrators sitting in the back room here trying to figure out a way to stick it to my family. And I have no doubt that everyone involved was just doing their jobs. But if you're one of those people, I want you to reevaluate what your job is. Your job is to take care of teachers so that we can care for the students, unless you're planning on going to do it. And any teacher can tell you, you're not going to get anywhere with students if they don't believe that you don't care about them.
Mr. Carnes, I have to stop you. I'm so sorry, but thank you.
Robert Semple Dragons rule.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 11, consent calendar action items. Let's see. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled and discussed. And let's see. So do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar as written?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as written.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
That's enough.
Okay.
Oh, wait, did I?
Yeah, it's on
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
consent.
sorry. Can I
Yeah, back up.
amend? I'd like to pull the quarterly report on the Williams uniform complaints, please, for further discussion.
Okay. We can do that, correct?
Did I do it in the right place?
Did she?
No, I get it.
Thank you.
11.3. Okay. So now, with the exception of 11.3, can we approve, or do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as written without 11.3?
I'll move, to approve the consent calendar without the Williams uniform complaint.
Okay, do I have a second?
11.3.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Okay, so we have to do a roll call.
I'm going to do a roll call on this one.
Yeah.
So President Zeta,
Yes.
Trustee Moss,
Yes.
Trustee Ferrucci,
Yes.
Trustee Maselli,
Yes.
and Trustee Grubbs.
Yes. Then we have to do 3 individual roll call votes, one for resolution number 21-22-16. So do I have a motion to, oh no, sorry. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, so Trustee, President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Moss,
Yes.
Trustee Ferrucci,
Yes.
and Trustee Maselli,
Yes.
Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
Okay, another roll call vote on resolution number 21-22-17.
President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Moss.
Yes.
Trustee Ferrucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli,
Yes.
and Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
Thank you. And finally, a roll call vote on resolution number 21-22-18.
And that's President Zeta,
Yes.
Trustee Moss.
Yes.
Trustee Ferrucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. That brings us to item number 12, our communication and informational items. 12.1 is the impact of the 2020 census data on trustee area map population balance. And we have from Fagan, Friedman, and Fullfrost, we have Brandon Lalonde. Is that correct? Okay, Lalonde, who will be sharing some insight on this change since we did the census, and it's changed a little. So thank you.
That's correct. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Brandon Lalonde, and I'm from Fagan, Friedman, and Fullfrost, the law firm that is assisting the district with its original transition and now census adjustments. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is the updated census numbers, and we'll get right to it. Let's get next slide. So before we get into
We have to turn it on.
Thank you. Perfect. Before we get into the actual census impact and adjusted map scenarios, I think it's first important to talk about what the CVRA is and why we're here tonight. The California Voting Rights Act, or CVRA, is a law that took effect in January of 2003, and it prohibits the use of at-large election systems when those election systems either impair the ability of a protected class to elect candidates of their choice, or the protected class's ability to influence the outcome of an election. As discussed a couple years ago, there's a really low bar, so that's why we recommended that the district transition to a by-trustee area election system. As you all know, at this point, a by-trustee area election system is where the school district is divided into separate and distinct trustee areas, and the governing board members are then elected from each of those trustee areas only by the individuals who live in those trustee areas. And the by-trustee area election system is a safe harbor from any CVRA claims, which is why we did the transition in the first place. Taking a look now at the transition history that happened roughly 3 years ago, the Board of Education passed its intent to initiate a transition on September 9th, 2019. And they also stated their intent for a waiver from the State Board of Education regarding the election requirement. There were 5 public hearings, including 2 pre-map public hearings that occurred on September 19th and October 3rd, 2019. And then there were 3 post-map public hearings that occurred on November 7th, November 21, and December 12th, 2019. The board approved the current map at that last December 12th, 2019 public hearing, and the map was submitted to Alameda County and was approved by the county committee on February 19, 2020. That map has been in circulation and use since the November 2020 elections. Now we're turning to the map creation considerations that the demographer looked at when we first created the maps, and that we also will look at in the adjustments. The federal requirements are equal population, protection of minority voting rights, and equal protection under the law. The state requirements include topography, geography, cohesiveness, and protection of communities of interest. What we're really looking at here with the census adjustment process is that first federal requirement, which is equal population. On the screen now is the district's current trustee area map. There is a legend at the bottom right that shows the different trustee areas that are shaded in different colors. Trustee area 1 is shaded in yellow. Trustee area 2 is shaded in green. Trustee area 3 would be shaded in red. Trustee area 4 is shaded in blue. And trustee area 5 would be the large pink area at the top of the district. Now, this is why we're here tonight, impact of the census. Once a transition is made to a by-trustee area election system, the governing board, following each census, must make certain adjustments if required, and if the population is above the 10% variance between the largest and smallest trustee areas. Again, what we're looking at is to make the population balanced within that 10% variance. The deadline to complete this process is March 1st, 2022. Okay, impact of census, changes needed. That's what we have here. If the population per trustee area is no longer in balance, then the demographer will create draft adjusted scenarios, and then the board will select a new map after a public hearing, and once selected, that map will be submitted to the county committee and the registrar for use until 2030, actually until 2031 when the new census data for 2030 is released. This is showing how the variance has changed from 2010, which is the first column, to 2020, which is the second column. There's been, I think, the largest changes in trustee area 1, a total change of 210 individuals. And there also was a large change in trustee area 5 with losing 67 individuals. The total variance now is 13.7%, which is larger than the permissible 10% variance that we had originally. Again, this is another look at the current trustee area maps, but now having the numbers of the populations. As we can see, the smallest trustee area will be trustee area 5 with 5,104. Largest trustee area is trustee area 1 with 5,574. So that's where most of the adjustment is going to happen. So proposed scenario 1. At the bottom right, we see the whole change, and we can also see where the trustee area boundaries used to be with the blue solid lines. The biggest change for this scenario is in between, as we suspected, trustee area 5 and trustee area 1. Because trustee area 5, which is the pink shaded area, was underpopulated and trustee area 1 was overpopulated, we can see that a lot of the land mass of trustee area 1, yellow, has been taken over by trustee area 5. This means that there wasn't a ton of population in that area to the northeast of the district, so we had to grab those populations with certain census blocks. There's also a slight change between trustee area 3 and 2. 2 has receded to the east, and the trustee area 3 has grown to the south. This map has a lot of information on demographics and population. Most importantly, with proposed scenario 1, the total variance is at the top right, is now 4.2%, which is within the permissible 10% variance. If we take a look at the total population, everything seems to be equally balanced. And if we're looking at the population variances, the smallest trustee area now is trustee area 1, and the largest trustee area would be trustee area 4. Now we're looking at proposed scenario 2. This is slightly different and gives a little bit of a different look than proposed scenario 1. And the biggest difference that we can see is the blue area that used to occupy the center of the district has now moved out to the east and goes to the eastern boundary line. That means that trustee area 5 is not coming as south as it was in scenario 1, and trustee area 1 is not losing as much population as it did in scenario 1. We still have the same growth of trustee area 3, which is the red section, that's going into trustee area 2. This map has a little more adjustment that we saw, but we were able to get an even smaller variance than the scenario 1. Scenario 1 was a 4.2 variance, whereas scenario 2 is a 3.6 variance. Scenario 3, again, a different look that's accomplishing the goals of population balance. This time, it looks a little more similar to scenario 1 in that the blue is staying in the center of the district. The purple area does not recede quite as far to the south, so it doesn't take quite as much population from trustee area 1, but trustee area 2 actually comes across the western border of trustee area 1 and grabs that population. So that's another look in a different way to achieve population balance. This one had probably the most adjustment, but we were able to get even smaller of a variance down to 1.9%. I'm talking about these different variances, but as long as we're below the 10%, they're all legally permissible. Some districts like to go with the lowest variance, whereas other districts have adopted to go with the smallest amount of changes. So those are the give and takes that we have in between the three scenarios. And we'll move on to the last slide, which discusses next steps. Early January 2022, the demographer created the draft maps that we are looking at. The district has posted that on the district website and invited the public to tonight's public hearing, which is January 20, 2022, where we have this presentation, where I will be happy to answer any questions that you have or any questions that the public has submitted. We're going to have a second board meeting on this item on February 3rd, 2022, where the board will vote to adopt a resolution of one of the adjusted map options. And following that meeting, my office will submit the adopted resolution to the county committee and the registrar for use until 2030. The deadline to complete this is February 28th, 2022. Any questions? Actually, hold on.
I do. I have a question. Can we talk about what this will cost the district? I know it was pretty substantial last time, and it was so recent, and it's frustrating that we have to do this again. But what dollar amount are we looking at to make these changes?
So the changes have already been made. So the district contracted with the law firm to contract with the actual map demographer. I'm not sure 100% what the actual cost of contracting the demographer, but it's an all-encompassing process where
Okay.
whatever you need now is already taken care
It's
of,
already,
and
so we've already paid.
the demographer will make any adjustments at no extra cost to the district,
Thank you.
if necessary.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have a question. One of the things that we talked about when we were looking at the first maps, and I don't remember how many of us were on here at the time. Yeah, we talked about the idea of the impact on communities, and I know it was something that our parents and community members were concerned about. So is there any way that we could see a more detailed breakdown of the areas? For example, we wanted to make sure, like a cul-de-sac wasn't divided in half, one way or the other. Just to make sure that there wasn't a fragmentation within a local community or neighbors. So is there some way we can get that detail again?
I can definitely check with the demographer if that's something we can do. I know that what they usually use and what they have to use is census blocks. So I don't
Okay.
know if they have that information of cul-de-sacs and particular other breakdowns, but I know they have the census block. So perhaps we can get a census block diagram and have that sent over, and it might give a more detailed look.
I just think that, well, for me, it would be useful. I don't know if they're shaking their heads, yes, but I mean, I just think it would be something that was important to us then, and it was important to our community on the feedback. So I would like to see that again if it's possible to get that detail.
Can it be shown as a street map with street names, et cetera, et cetera?
And the color just like kind of
I'm
overlay.
sure, I'm sure that's
yeah,
possible. I'm sure
The
that's
color
possible.
coded, but
Yep.
street names, et
Yeah.
cetera.
I'm sure that's
'Cause-
possible, and I'll try to
Thank
get a
you.
little more detail on the map before the next meeting.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thank you very
I
much.
think that would be great.
Because, yeah, I'd like, obviously, to make a decision based on what the community would desire the most. If it's the least amount of upheaval. Because initially looking at it, that, you think, oh, well, the least variance would be good.
Right.
But if that causes a lot of upheaval for community members, I'd rather go with what, the community members would desire the most.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because you said we're legally within the size, so I would like to go with the one that's least disruptive to everyone.
Sure. And if we take a look at 1, 2, and 3, 1 has the least amount of changes, is just at the edges of the district, just to grab the population, but has the highest variance, and then it's a sliding scale from there. Scenario 2 has a little bit more adjustment and a little bit lower of the variance, and 3 has the most adjustment with the lowest variance. But I will get that information for you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, solid call.
Any other questions? I think that might be it for the moment, but we'll see you
Until the next.
at the next board
Sure.
meeting.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we're going backwards a little bit. Excuse me. To the Williams Act. And it has been shared that we are able to discuss that this evening, unless you see a reason to wait and discuss it at another time. But we are able to discuss some of those items that, whatever items were that you wanted to have it pulled for.
I think since I cannot remember her name, please forgive me, from Semple, the first grade teacher. Since she brought a list, I think it would be better if we all saw the list and took a look at that. If that's okay, can we please put it on the agenda for another time?
So, yeah, we could definitely, so we have two options. I guess we haven't done this before in a while, but we can do what we're doing now or bring it back. Certainly, we could do that. Did you have any questions for staff? Because the Williams Act is, it's complaints, like complaints filed. So did you have any questions or things that you wanted us to follow up on aside from the list from Simple, or do we just work with that, or? Anything else, Leslie?
I was just going to say, so quarterly, we have to by law file the Williams complaints, and it's based on physical complaints or uniform complaints or Williams Acts that gets filed by staff or families. So it's not there's, absolutely, she's got lists of things that we need to look at, but we have not received any physical
Formal
formal
complaint.
complaints. And so that's all this is have we received any in that quarter of the year? And if so, what were they about and did we fix them? But we have not received any physical uniform or Williams complaints. I don't know if that helps clarify.
That does help. I'd like to bring it back if that's okay with you.
And then since I just want to ask a question for clarification. So I know at the beginning of the year that school districts are visited. And, so there's Williams visits throughout. They're supposed to happen with every school in the state of California. So, but I also know that all of our schools don't always get visited. And so I know that we probably signed off at the beginning of the year because that's when it has to happen, like the first 4 weeks of school. And so I'm just wondering, because I just don't recall offhand, does the county office provide you with the same rubric that they use for the evaluation process? So like when I used to do the visits, we'd have to go to the school sites, we look at all the facilities, we would go in all the classrooms and things like that. So we had a rubric that we used to check off everything. Does the county office provide something like a tool for you to use so that you can just basically, because I know that the county doesn't visit Benicia Unified, so do they provide a rubric for you to sign off to give them back to say, okay, we're good?
I'll need to look into that. I haven't seen a rubric, but I do know we have a checklist of things.
Right.
The different notices have to be up. We have to have it signed by every principal that, yes, this notice is up, so we have all of that on file. But I don't know if we've gotten a rubric.
Okay, and because I know our facilities department, probably as they do their walks, they have something that they should be using. Because I am kind of, just kind of curious now, just making sure that, where everything is okay.
Yes, we do. The facilities does have the reports, and that goes through their process, and that's why it matches what's in the Williams report.
Well, thank you for clarifying. And would we be remiss to hold it for 2 weeks, or are we going to be out of compliance? Yeah.
Let me do a little bit of research on that because I know we have to approve them quarterly.
Okay.
And again, it's just about if we've received formal complaints in that area.
I see what you're saying. There was nothing directly written on a complaint form at the site, but now we're made aware that there are some situations that we should look into further. So I'm not sure.
So can I make a recommendation? Just as our suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I'm kind of seeing two things happening here. This Williams Complaint Act is, the period's done. So, but I think you're concerned about a couple of things at the site, and the next one is now open. So it would go on this next one. And then I think also what Yosemite was talking about is the Williams Walk that occurs at the beginning of a year.
Right.
And that's also separate from this. So I'm wondering if what we need is a little bit of clarity and maybe a little bit of quick training for Leslie so that we understand exactly what the role of each one is. And then, but we would also be able to address whether or not it goes on the next Williams Complaint Act. Because we're already in the next period. This period's done. And since there was no complaint about, I know one of the things that I heard her say was computers. So with the complaint, so it would happen now and then be on or addressed on this next form. Is that making sense?
It does, but yes, it does. And thank you, because that, and what Leslie said, that does clarify for me. But then how does it get to, how does what our teacher was saying get on to the complaint? Because I would assume that, people don't want a Williams complaint. So how do we address that?
Well, I think that's part of this next phase. And I think giving us clarity on what each one of those two things is, how it happens, and then what this list is that we're looking at.
So then how do we come back next meeting and discuss some of these things? How does it work?
Well, what
I
we
mean,
can do
I'm
is,
just not
staff-
clear, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I'm not
Staff
sure I
and
know.
I can, look at the list and have a conversation about the things that have been brought forward as a concern, and to see if we can address those. Certainly, we would want to do that. And we can report that to you in a Friday update to the board in writing to say, these things were brought to our attention, that we looked into it, and this is, if there's a resolution, there's a resolution, and we can do that in a board update to you. We could we could bring it back as an item at the board meeting as well. Be at your pleasure. I mean, I could see us reporting to you in a board update, but it's your pleasure.
Because I kind of think the goal is to address the lack thereof or the concern, not make the complaint.
Correct. I
Is
get
that what I
that too.
got?
Yeah.
So
But
what
I
I'm
don't know
saying
how
is
we
I
know
think,
that.
pardon me?
I don't know how we know that unless somebody.
Well, which
puts
is
in a
why I think I'm
Williams
asking
complaint.
Leslie if the next board meeting, those two could be on the agenda. And I think I don't make that request until the end of the meeting, right? But it would be good if it came back on the agenda so that we had a better understanding, because then we could explain it.
Okay.
Is that fair?
I just kind of, just for I know, just making sure everybody's on the same page, but I know that for parents, so like they're able to file complaints if,
Right.
if things aren't the way they see that they should be. But then what about our staff? So like, if we have a situation where we have members at a school site who are, maybe there's something that needs to be fixed, what is the process for them so that it gets handled? Like, what are they use to file or to, express their concerns or whatever? So I
Or
think
what's
part
the
of it is
process, I
that,
think?
Yeah.
Yeah, typically what we would do is they would talk to their principal, and then the principal would talk to the assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction or whatever department where they feel like there's a deficiency. That we, handle it at that level, and sometimes we talk about those things in cabinet, but that's how that communication goes. So what about this, you guys? What if, I'm listening to us talk, a thought is, based on Diane's, Ms. Ferrucci's clarity, because of the window, did you want to go back and approve this Williams? So the few things, approve this one, and then we'll bring the next window, we'll bring that back and see if there's any complaints. And then the third piece of it is, we have some communication from a couple staff member at Robert Semple, and we could follow up on those and talk to Principal Moore, and see if there's things in there that we can fix. And then we could update that to you guys in a board update.
And I think I would defer to Cece, because Cece's the one who wanted it pulled. So are you comfortable with that? Can we move forward and approve this one?
I am comfortable with that, but I'm wondering about isolating Robert Semple. What about the other schools? But as she said, Robert Semple is a very old school, and there are some things that may need to be fixed. So from what I understand, we're going to approve the Williams complaint because it's passed. And then next meeting, you're going to come and educate us a bit on the Williams complaint, any Williams complaints, what it covers, and what really the process is for. I think you mentioned technology, facilities, textbooks, etc. Is that correct?
And then the third piece, like I said, is that we'll follow up on the list. We'll check in with the principal, and then we'll communicate that to you guys in writing and a board update. Will give us a little time to work through that.
I think that would be good to know.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
Can we
absolutely.
get a copy of that this evening before we all leave, of the note, so we are aware of what?
Oh, that she gave you? Sure.
Oh, yes,
Was it-
please.
This was not.
No,
it. That was.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That's my stuff. That's not hers.
Maybe Georgina can just scan it and put it on an email for us.
Yes,
it-
that would
yeah.
be great.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sound good? So you have to vote on it again.
Oh, it's right here. Nobody heard that. I have it right here. I'll give it to Georgina. Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to see if there's a motion on the table to approve the 11.3 approval of the quarterly report on the Williams uniform complaints. Do I have a motion on the table to approve 11.3?
After discussion, I'll move to approve the Williams complaint, the Williams uniform complaints, provided that it all comes back to us. Yes, okay. I move, so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, please.
President Zeta,
Yes.
Trustee Moss. Yes. Trustee Perucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Griggs.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now we go back to where we were. Yes, 12.2. It's the information item, Governing Board review of the Governor's January budget proposal for 2022 and 2023 fiscal year from 7/1/2022 to 6/30/2023. Mr. Rayhill,
Yes,
your turn.
yes, good evening. We have this item for your information tonight. The Governor Newsom, he came out with his governor's budget proposal for the next fiscal year for California, which starts July 1st. So we're wrapping up. We're in the last 6 months of the current budget year. And as the governor does every January, the governor comes out with a budget proposal for the following budget year, and he did so just a week or two ago. So the state is doing relatively well with the finances, made up of taxes from individuals, personal income tax, sales tax, corporate tax. And the personal income tax collections are beating the budget estimates, which contributes to the state budget, which the governor puts together and makes his proposal in January. So this budget proposal, it goes through the process through the state legislature, and they take a look at it, make some comments and inquiries, and the governor comes back with a May revised budget in May, which they then vote on to come up with a final state budget towards the mid to the later part of June. And so in the governor's January proposal, again, it's just a proposal right now, as they do each year, they provide for a cost of living adjustment. And his budget for next year includes the cost of living adjustment at 5.33%. And so we would pass that down to schools and to our general funds and to some of our restricted funds as well, like special ed. We want to note that when the district gets those funds, there's the other costs that we're facing that we have to budget for next year, like all school districts. With our salary schedules, we have our step and column costs that we would need to cover as folks move on, over and up on the salary schedules. Our retirement systems are requiring us as a district to contribute more into both the certificated STRS retirement and the classified PERS retirement. And really the biggest challenge that we're facing, as most districts in California, is what a lot of folks are referring to as the ADA cliff. ADA is average daily attendance, and school districts get funded on our students attending school, not just enrolling in school. So we look at, on average, how well our students attend during the school year, and the state provides us funding for that. And so we are, like most school districts, we're declining in our student population for a variety of reasons, just lower births and folks moving out of the area and out of the state. And so when you have less kids enrolled, that naturally usually translates into an average daily attendance and attendance reduction as well. We are experiencing an above average, lower attendance rate in our school district this year. Not surprisingly, due to COVID and other issues, or not other issues, but just sickness or exposures to such. And the superintendent has done a nice job of getting that attendance information from us and sending it out to the board and others. And so historically, our school district, our students, they've done a really great job at attending school at about 96%, which means if you have 100 kids, 96 kids would show up each day. So that's pretty good. There's going to be a certain percentage that are out sick or for a variety of reasons. So, it's our goal to maintain that high 96% attendance rate. And, you saw those percentage rates here in January, and some of them were down in the 80s, the low 90s. And so we need to just keep on top of that and do the best we can and work with our families and students and staff to, do whatever we can to get our kids attending school when it's safe and appropriate. So I just want to share that those are our challenges in our district, which are very similar to other districts. There's a proposal by some of our state senators and or assembly people in regards to minimizing that ADA cliff and providing some sort of averaging over the years so that a district wouldn't have to take a big giant hit in the first year. You would kind of so if you had a decline of 300 ADA or whatever, maybe they'd spread that out over 3 years. So you're only taking a hit for 100 ADA each year. I'm just using that as a very basic example.
Can I ask, enrollment and ADA are different things. And so I understand the decline in enrollment aspect, but I was definitely going to ask that about the ADA. I would think because of the COVID surge that the state would at least look at doing something to, mitigate, the fact that this is something beyond our control with COVID. So, I think that we always have to remember that we have to divide decline enrollment, which is a reality for us, which is actual people on the roster, versus the ADA, which is butts and seats on a daily basis. So you're telling me that there's at least some people at the state level that are looking at mitigating the ADA cliff, as you said. Because declining enrollment, the only way to deal with that is to adjust staffing levels, or, that's people on the roll sheets. So they are looking at doing something about the ADA, because that was my biggest worry.
Yeah, there's at least one, maybe two proposals in regards to proposal to mitigate and spread out the reduction in ADA over not just the budget year, but maybe 1 or 2 years out. So yeah, but it's not in the governor's proposal. The governor did not include an ADA type adjustment in his January proposal, but there are other senator or assembly persons. I can't remember
That's a
which
shame
side
that
of the
he's
house.
not looking at that, because that's a reality. COVID's a reality, and people keeping their kids home because they want to feel safe is a reality. And for him to not,
Well, in school districts are saying if you've been exposed, you got to stay home for 10
right,
days.
and yeah, and then
Yeah,
to
right.
do that, all right, thank you, I appreciate it.
So just to dovetail on Mark's question, because that was my question, what about this year that we're getting hit? Because is this not also the year that the hold harmless goes away?
In our current
year?
budget year, so this was the last year of the hold harmless.
Okay.
So 21-22, our current year, we were held harmless, but not next year in 22-23. So we were going to take kind of a
big
double hit
Right.
in 22-23, and we're still scheduled to take that double hit unless the governor and the state do something between now and the final budget in June.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll continue to monitor that, bring any information we get between now and over the next few months. The governor he continues to put some money into some special grants, some after-school programs, early literacy. It's all about, focusing on preschool age 4-year-olds and whatnot. So we're putting some plans together for that, as well as some college and career type programs. Coming new to Benicia School District next year, and all public schools with transitional kindergarten, TK. So we're probably going to have 2 new TK classrooms next year for some of our 4.5-year-olds or whatever. And do we know the cutoff date now?
February 2nd. So you have to turn 5 between September 2nd and February 2nd for net to be eligible to enroll in TK.
It's been extended because it was December and now it's February.
Yeah.
They extended it by 2 months.
So based on our estimates, our projections, our best guess at this time, we are projecting we would probably have, somewhere in the 40s, which would be 2 new TK classrooms. And due to facility availability, we're planning to have those at Matthew Turner School. Basically, 2 new TK classrooms over the next 4 years. And so we'd add 2 at the schools as appropriate as we can fit them in. So we'll be reporting back to that. Dr. Beatson has had a couple community Zoom and or types of meetings and has had good participation from our Benicia parents of 4-year-olds to be. So that's a good sign. So people know about TK, at least some do, and are tuning in to find out some of the early information.
Thanks for the update. Thanks, Dr. Beatson, for staying on top of that as well with all the changes. So we're going to move on to item number 12.3, update on the BUSD School Facility General Obligation Bond, Measure S Program, and Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. This time I'd like to ask Ms. Egan if you join us up here and share your wisdom with us.
Thank you. Oh, that's not the right one. Is try this one. I'm sorry, I must have grabbed the wrong thing. I used that at a prior meeting. Actually, here.
Yes, as Roxanne Egan, our bond director, is getting ready, we're just this is for your information tonight. We come each quarter or each year to give you an update on our local community's passage of the Measure S bond, which they passed several years ago. That gave us about $49.6 million to do school facility projects throughout the district. So we are getting close to we are fully committed on the projects, and Ms. Egan can give you an update as to where we're at.
Great. I'm sorry for the stumbling to start with. So you have the full packet that we shared with our CBOC board and committee. Sorry, not board. But so I'm not going to go through all the details. I'm just going to highlight our project progress that we shared with the CBOC. And then secondly, I wanted to share out, it kind of dovetails on what Diane pointed out about the facilities steering committee. And there's a lot of detail that we covered in that meeting. I don't intend to take you through all of that today, but wanted to highlight some of our funding, our grants that we've been awarded and those things. So I'll start out with our bond project progress. So we have the On the left is the same column of all the things that have been completed. And then the lower left-hand shows what's in construction right now. So we have our middle school seismic upgrades is still in construction. That's really going to be ongoing through the summer. It'll be complete 100% this summer. Most of their areas are reoccupied with the exceptions of buildings C1 and C2. And then at the high school, we've got some safety improvements for the exterior site lighting upgrades. And then on the right-hand side are projects that were identified to be, well, they have funding allocated from our remaining Measure S bond monies, and we're in planning stages with them. So our big one is definitely Mary Farmer. And then we've got additional phases at the middle school. We've got some infrastructure and safety upgrades in the gym, alternative education improvements. The bathroom at Joe Henderson has certainly gotten moved up because it had some damage out there. And then daycare modulars at Joe Henderson and some improvements at the PAB at the high school. So can we go to the next slide, please? Our meeting with the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee went well. We have a new member that the board appointed in December. We all know Ms. Holquin, so we're very pleased to have her on our committee. It's a good addition. Our next meeting date is April 26th at 9 a.m. And then I have just some couple of photos from our latest improvements at the middle school. This is in B1, so they needed counselor's office, and we were able to utilize this space. And it's showing how we really achieved privacy for their use, and so the site's been really pleased with it. We're really happy. The next slide is just another photo of that space. It's hard to get a good shot to really show everything there with the layout. This slide is showing the administration of the middle school. So they got some new cubicles, which were badly needed. Their old ones were falling apart. This is another slide of their new admin cubicles. And then the next slide is showing, so last time we met with you, we had known that we were awarded Top 51 monies in the amount of $9 million. Since then, we have additional applications that have been approved in the amount of $7.5 million. So we're up to $16.5 million. Yeah, thank you. We're really excited about it. So that $7.5 million is not necessarily all money that we've received yet, but the grants have been awarded, and we feel comfortable enough to go ahead and start planning because it takes a while to get between those two. So it seems like a good thing to do. And then we also asked our consultant to put together a 5-year look ahead for our eligibility. And we have an additional $4.5 million that will become eligible within the next 5 years. So on the lower hand side, last time that we brought this to you, we listed all the projects that the $9 million the funding would be allocated to. It essentially goes across all the sites. Mary Farmer modernization, the middle school modernization and seismic, Matthew Turner re-roof and HVAC upgrades, high school PAB and or other projects, Joe Henderson parking lot upgrades and improvements, and then Robert Simple modernization with $2 million. So that was already approved with everyone and through your support. What we're showing on the right-hand column is the other $7.5 million that we just received, and what we reviewed with the steering committee and what staff recommends is to put $6 million more into the Mary Farmer Elementary School modernization funding, and then supplementing the middle school seismic and modernization with another $1.5 million. So that will take us to be allocated through the $16.5 million fully, and so hopefully that is with everyone's liking. The next slide, and this is, it's kind of small for me. I don't know if everybody else can see it. Is it possible to zoom in and just show the bottom half of that page is really what I want to look at. Thank you. So this just curtails on what Ms. Ferrucci was saying earlier, that we just want to highlight and reflect on the additional money and opportunities that we've gotten to support our facilities. So we have Prop 51, which is going to morph into a new number of 75. So you'll start seeing both of those. We have AB 841, which is our new HVAC legislation that was passed last year due to COVID. So right now, they're funding underprivileged schools first and not eligible for our district yet, but it will open up to us eventually. They have 2 funding rounds of those a year, so we'll keep watching it and looking at it. We have AB 130, which is legislation supporting the new TK programs for facilities. And then we have our Prop 39 money, which are energy upgrades that we completed in the amount of $1 million. We did those about 3 years ago. And then just wanting to point out and give credit for all the support that our maintenance and IT department does in-house. And we got a solar grant in the amount of about, well, it wasn't a grant, it was a low interest Krebs loan. In the amount, it was a little bit over $5 million. And then June's programs, she gets some grants that support her for facility health. And we also, through the dining facilities, they get grants that have helped to fund some of the equipment for the kitchen, and maintenance has worked to install it. So just wanting to paint the full picture there of everything, that all the resources that we're tapping on. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Was this included in our packet?
This is not all this. I certainly can forward it to you, though.
Yeah, that would be great, because it was hard. I couldn't, and I was like looking through my packet and going, no, that's not it. That would be great if you could do that. I'd appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? No? Okay, thank you, Ms. Egan.
You're welcome. And so David, he's the chair of our oversight committee meeting, and I just want to say that we have a great committee and they do such good work, and we appreciate their support.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Mr. Sells, right?
Yes, I'm David Sells. I'm the
Okay,
chairman.
so I'd like to step back a second and say that we're moving on to item 12.4, the 2020 and 2021 annual report of school facility general obligation bond measure as Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Sells, who's going to be reporting this information out.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, my name's David Sells, and I'm the chairman of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. And as the chair of this committee, it's my responsibility to deliver to you our annual report for the fiscal year of 2020-2021. Before I do, I'd like to thank other committee members that take part in overseeing the proceeds from the bond measure, and that they're spent in accordance with the laws of the state of California. Joining me on the committee are Todd Blaitler, Andre Lewis, and Mark Hughes. And like you guys heard, we are welcoming our newest member, Stacy Hogan. We'd also like to thank Tim Rayhill and Roxanne Egan as our chief business official and bond director. They do an excellent job in preparing for our meetings, and as we shower them with questions, they're very patient and with us, and it just makes it so easy for us to understand what's happening. I'd also like to thank Dr. Young for taking time out of his schedule to be at our meetings to provide his updates on the projects as well. So the purpose of the committee is to inform the public on how the funds are being used, review the bond expenditures, and present an annual report to the school board. So the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee reports that for fiscal year 2020-2021, that the Benicia Unified School District has spent Measure S bond proceeds according to the bond project list contained in the ballot measure, and is therefore in compliance with the requirements of the state of California Constitution Article 13A, Section 1B3. We held 3 meetings this past year, one in January, one in May, and then one in July. And at these meetings, we met to receive the bond project updates and review the bond expenditures lists. For fiscal year 2021, the The committee reviewed bond expenditures in a total of about 3.5 million. The 2020-2021 bond expenditures were spent on BMS campus modernization, BMS seismic upgrades, high school site improvements, Mary Farmer modernization, project management, HVAC upgrades, fire alarms, and then windows at Liberty. So moving into, as of June 30th of 2021, we have 15.2 in Measure S funds remaining, and those are to be spent on already identified projects going forward. So in closing, it has been an honor to work with this amazing team of committee members and staff at the district. Implementing and managing a bond measure is no small undertaking, but our community can be proud of the hard work this team is doing to ensure we maximize the benefit to our students. And with that, thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sells, and thank you to all the members on the team that are working tirelessly to help make all this happen for our schools. Thank you. Okay, we're on item number 13, non-consent action items. First up is 13.1, consideration and approval of the Benicia Unified School District COVID-19 sick leave for all employees. And I believe Dr. Young.
Yes, thank you very much. So you have that in your packet, and part of managing the pandemic, and then the surge was on us, and so you have it in your packet there, which is we met with both of the unions, and they signed the MOU. There is an amendment to the MOU taking into consideration. So let me back up a little bit. So this MOU is reinstating the sick leave that expired, I think, September 30th, and so we're renewing it effective October 1 with 10 days for employees that are affected by it. The two changes, the amendments that are in the MOU, I'll just note them quickly, that we added that they could use a leave for employees also if they get ill or they take care of their children up to 18 years of age that have tested positive. So that's another change in there. And then another change we added was if an employee is unable to take a test from a healthcare facility or clinic, positive tests will be accepted for the purpose of being granted, because sometimes it's difficult to go to a facility and get it. So we're delineated how they can use that test at home, and how you see it in the document there, take a picture of it, date it, and show that to us just so it's documented. So we wanted to make sure that we did that for our employees as we continue to manage the pandemic. You're welcome.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. All right. We are to the last item of the evening. Oh, sorry. Yes, I was rushing. So do I have a motion on the table? Can I get a motion?
I'll move, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll move to approve the COVID-19 sick leave for all employees.
I'll second the motion to approve item 13.1.
Great. And can we get a roll call, please, Mrs. Martinez?
Yes, President Seda.
Yes.
Trustee Moss. Trustee Ferrucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Grubbs.
Okay. The last item up this evening is consideration and approval of Benicia Unified School District Independent Auditors Report and the Financial and Performance Bond Audit. The governing board will be provided with information on the Independent Auditors Report for the Benicia Unified School District and the Financial and Performing Audit for the Benicia Unified School District 2014 Measure S General Obligation Bonds Building Fund for the fiscal year ended in June 30th, 2021. And I'll invite, oh, we've got, okay. Would you like to do that? Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, board. This item is for your action tonight to approve the two audits that our school district has each year. We have the regular audit for the entire district, and then since we did pass a local bond, we're required to have a separate audit for our bond fund for our school facilities. And we have our auditor with us tonight from James Motter CPA, Jesse Dole, and he is going to give you some highlights from our audits.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and give you the highlights of the district audit, and then I'll go into the bond measure financial and performance audit results. So in order for me to discuss the district audit, there are communications that we have. We have the governance letter, which is a separate communication that you have in front of you. Then you have the audit report, which has our audit opinion. Then we have the internal control report. Then we have the state audit report, and then the federal compliance report. And I'm going to get into the results in all of those. So the scope of the engagement, we were engaged to do the financial audit. That talks about the government-wide financials covered in the governmental activities. Then you have the major funds of the district, and then you got the aggregate remaining funds, so the ones that are smaller in nature. And then you have the notes to the financial statements that highlight the significant and required disclosures. And then you have the required supplementary information. There's limited procedures on those sections. And then you have the supplementary information. So that's a layout of the actual audit report. Now I'm going to start with the explaining of the governance letter. So basically, this is our communication from the auditor to the board to let you know what the nature, time, and extent of the audit was, if there's any changes in the standards, any new GASB implementation. And then if there's any difficulty encountered during the course of the audit, we're required to communicate that. If there's any findings, we're required to reach out and let you know. So that's basically what's in that governance letter. And what I did want to mention is it also highlights the responsibilities of the district management and then the auditor's responsibility. And the biggest thing you want to take away from this is the audit opinion. We issued an unmodified opinion. That's the cleanest opinion that an auditor can issue. So that's good news there.
Yay.
We also didn't have to have a separate communication because there was nothing to report to you. So that's also good news there. Typically, if there's a significant deficiency or material weakness, we have to contact you and let you know ahead of time, but then it's also communicated in writing in the actual audit report. So that didn't have to take place this year. So as I mentioned, with the scope of the audit, we do preliminary inquiries. We talk to management about the scope of the audit, what's going to happen, and we schedule field work, and then it takes place. And then what we want to let you know is there were no other additional consultations during the course of the audit. There were no disagreements with management, and we retained the management representations. What that basically means is whatever the management team provided us, it was true and accurate to their knowledge. They disclosed everything that we needed to conduct our audit and finish it. And so once we got the representations, we went ahead and issued our audit opinion. So I did want to highlight a significant policy change that did take place is the implementation of GASB 84. And that's basically how this changes from prior year's audit and this year's audit report is where you have the associated student body funds. They're no longer considered fiduciary activities. They're actually considered governmental activities. So if you looked at the 2020 audit report, you would have seen a separate statement, and you would have seen a column that talks about what the balance sheet and income statement activity was for the student body activity. This year, we had to do a prior period statement, and we had a governmental fund set up called Student Activity Fund. So when you look in the supplementary section, you'll see the aggregate non-major funds, and you'll see a student body activity account there, or a fund there, and then you'll see the assets and liabilities. So that's the only change. And then the most important thing you want to take away from that explanation is we did not modify our opinion because of that change. So we were able to restate the beginning balance and show it comparative. And then the district did a great job in implementing GASB 84 by doing the correct entries throughout the year. And so we didn't have to modify or make any adjustments. So they did a great job in implementing that. That's the reason why we issued the unmodified opinion. There are other judgments and estimates that are taken into consideration. One is with the collectability of the receivables, and so we defer to Tim and his team. They do an excellent job. They know what is really going to come in and what should be written off. So we looked at their rationale, and we didn't have to make any adjustments in regards to the receivables. With the pension and OPEB liability, we deferred to the actuarial valuations. And so we looked at the assumptions that they used, and basically we agreed with their calculations, and then we put those estimates on the financial statement. So those are estimates, and that's what's communicated in that letter to you. Okay. So basically, when we do the audit, we basically have to have an understanding of the policies, the way the district does their business, and then we have to then go ahead and test those controls to make sure that whatever the district is telling us, they're actually doing it. So we, and that's actually reported in the internal control letter. So we gather the evidence, we review the details. If there's any calculations involved, we recalculate that for accuracy. And so that's how we gather the sufficient appropriate audit evidence to form our basis for opinion. So to give you the results, so everything went as planned. We did not have any findings identified through the course of the audit, and there were no significant adjustments or disclosures that were not included in the financial statement. So everything is in conformity with the governmental accounting standards, and so that's good news there. So that's what you want to take away from the governance letter. In regards to the audit report, so I already mentioned that we had an unmodified opinion, so clean opinion. Talked about the change in accounting principle, and it's also described in detail in note 1W. So if you want to know what the change was, which I explained with the student body activity, it's explained in a I think a one-page note description. And then you'll also see the prior period adjustment to bring the ending balance from last year's fiduciary fund as the beginning balance of that student body activity fund. The next item after our audit opinion is the management discussion analysis. That's just a Cliff Note version of the entire audit report. So if you didn't want to read the entire 80+ report, this is the most important section that you want to read. So this is where it summarizes the activity that took place. Management describes what took place, and then what the district is facing, and then what they project going into the future. So Tim already went into the declining enrollment with the ADA. So that's also reflected in that as well. So key highlights to take away. You'll see total assets went down 344,000. I'm gonna get into a little bit of what the significant variances were. The deferred outflow and the deferred inflow, that's determined by an actuary. So those are just estimates. And the reason why they're deferred is because the actuarial valuations are actually in the past. So anything that the district did since the actuarial valuation was completed, it's actually a deferred activity. So if it's an extra payment that they made for the PERS and STIRS contribution or the OPEB contribution, it's actually going to sit in deferred outflow because it had happened after the actuarial did their valuation. And so the inflow is if the actuarial made an assumption of what the market was going to do, and then something else happened, it's going to be sitting in the deferred inflow. So that's kind of how you want to look at that. Those are just examples in generalizations. Liabilities went down 1.8 million, and again, I'll tell you why that happened in the next slide here. And then net position was down 391,000. So the assets were pretty consistent. There wasn't much variance there, just negative 0.3%. So what's been happening is we've been spending the bond projects. So if you're focusing on the capital assets, We've had items sitting in work in process, but now those projects, some of them are getting completed. So they're just moving from one section of the fixed assets down into a completed section where they're going to now start to be capitalized, right? So the decrease that you see there is actually depreciation, okay? So that's what happened there. I already explained the deferred inflows and outflows, and that's, again, related to the actual valuations. Focusing on the total liabilities, so what's been happening here is we've had bond pay downs. So that's the main driver of why the liabilities decreased. And then same thing with the deferred inflows. It's related to the OPEB and pension liability. So we ended with a net position of negative almost $9 million. So this is not as bad as it can be, considering the time frame that what we're dealing with the pandemic. So there's districts that have had a lot more of a change in that position other than 390,000. So not to worry too much. But there are some areas that I want you guys to focus in going into this fiscal year and going into and planning for the next fiscal year. So our revenues in 2021, we did have 682,000 upward swing. However, this is the area that is a little bit of a concern. Expenses were up 8.5 million. Okay, so when you're looking from year to year, you can see that we got the brunt of the impact of COVID in that fiscal year, because the 2020 fiscal year, the impact was the last couple months of the fiscal year. This time, beginning of the year, we were really in it. Okay, we had a lot of shutdowns. We were trying to get people back in classrooms and so on and so forth. So there was a lot of extra expenditures that had to take place. So that's the reason for that. We just need to be mindful of that, of where we're spending that. And you'll see that in these other graphics coming up. So this is the statement of activities. So this is the income statement as a whole, if you will. So you can see we went from 63.9 million to 64.5 million. And so a lot of the majority of the income is coming from taxes, federal and state funding. And then we had the total expenses. So we went from 56.5 to 64.9 million. And so that's the almost $5 million swing. And you can see the majority of it was on instruction and instruction related and pupil services. So we spent it on where it needed to be spent, but we just need to be mindful going into the future. Now focusing on the actual governmental funds, this is the general fund. You can see LCFF sources. That's where we get majority of our funding. So that's 106.4 million. Then you have federal at 13.4 million, state at 17.2 million, and then local revenues of 6.8 million. So that's the makeup of the general fund revenues. And now focusing just on the general fund expenditures, you'll see salaries and benefits. They make up majority of the district's expenditures. So we have certificated salaries of 53.3 million, classified at 20.4, benefits at 34.2, and then we got books and supplies at 10.6, services at 14.3 million, and then you have some other expenditures totaling at less than $1 million. I like to point this slide. This is from one of the later supplemental sections, the financial trends and analysis. This shows the last 2 fiscal years, the fiscal year that we were in, and then as of the adopted budget. So things probably have changed since then, and Tim is probably discussing that with you. What I wanted to highlight at the bottom, you can see that the available reserves as a percentage of total outgo, we are meeting the 3%. That's what is required for a district this size. But what we have budgeted is exactly 3%. So just be careful when we're budgeting for the 2022 fiscal year. We do want to make sure we have enough of a reserve there. You'll see the long-term liabilities. It has been increasing, but the last couple of years, it's actually shown a decrease. And a lot of that's because we've been making significant pay downs on the debt. But when you start to dive into it, you'll see the pension liability just keeps going up, right? So that's something that we have to be aware of. And it's not really in our control, but we should always have a reserve built in. So there's that. And then as Tim mentioned earlier, the ADA of this is showing a 19 ADA decrease over the last 2 fiscal years. And so as of the adopted budget, we didn't have a difference. It was just as the same amount as what we ended with at 4438. And if you're focusing right on the change in fund balance, does this point? So like right here in the middle, you'll see the last 3 fiscal years, we've had a surplus. But as of the adopted budget, we're projecting a deficit. So that's something that we should be mindful of. And then that's the ADA over the last few years. So the other thing I wanted to mention is, so we've covered the governance letter, we covered the audit opinion. So then we have the state audit report, and you can see there, I'm pleased to report that we had no findings, so no matters reported. So we issued an unmodified opinion on the state compliance audit. Then we had we do the control testing, and we issue an internal control letter. So that basically, it doesn't have an opinion, but we tell you if we've found any control deficiencies, anything that was significant or material. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm pleased to report there were no control deficiencies noted this year, and no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. That means the business office is using sound business practices, there's checks and balances. So you guys should have peace of mind knowing that when the district is making decisions with taking payments or they're making expenditures, there's proper checks and balances going through there. So that's good news. And in regards to the report on the federal compliance, that's the last piece there to the right. So anytime a governmental entity receives and spends federal dollars over $750,000, it triggers a single audit, which is in conformity with the uniform guidance. So it's a federal compliance audit. So we conducted a federal compliance audit for the district, and we issued an unmodified opinion. So the COVID funding were the ones that we were focused in on because they're the high risk money. So we had to flag those as a high risk. We looked at it. We issued an unmodified opinion. Again, no findings, and they had proper controls in place as well. So no deficiencies noted with the federal compliance as well. So clean sweep all the way through. And so wanted to thank Tim and his team that did a great job. They are making good financial decisions. So I'm sure that Tim is going to be ready for this fiscal year. Again, there's a lot of work that goes along with the audit process, with the many hats that the business team wears. And then with all the changes, with all the new funding and the compliance issues, and they've done a great job. They reach out to us throughout the year, so they're on it. Anytime there's anything new, they want to ask, hey, are we doing it the right way? So you got the right people doing the right things, and that's the reason why you had the results that you had. Clean sweep all the way through, and that's what you want to know as the board, and then as the community. So that's it for the district audit, and then I'll go into the bond audit. But before that, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dole. Was it, just out of curiosity, was this included in our packet? It's not, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, just this the audit reports are. This is just the.
It was hard to follow the numbers because we couldn't really see them from here.
Oh,
So
I can email it
sure,
to you. Yes.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just so we have it to refer back to if we
Yeah.
have any questions. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, Sherry.
yeah,
Your-
of course.
Your explanations.
It's like, wait, what is, like, I can read that word, but understand we'll get it from you and we'll be able to
Yes.
backtrack a little bit. Thank you with that.
you're
And then you had the other part of your report.
Yes, so this is the Measure S financial and performance audit results. So some of the items I'm not going to go over because you already know you have issued a bond measure a few years back. This is just showing which the series were and then what the dollar amount was. So Series A back in 2014, 20 million, and then we had Series B back in 2016, 29.6 million. This slide shows when the money came in, where did it go? And so one of the things that we have to do when we do the bond audit, we have to track these proceeds and see, did the district book these funds in the proper fund, and are they separately tracking it away from the other funds? So that's one of the things that we're charged with. So we issue a governance letter along with this report as well. So again, as I mentioned before, anytime there's any difficulty or anything like that, if anything comes up, we pick up the phone, we call you, and then we put it in writing and to let you know, like, this is going to be an issue, this is how it's going to be reported. But we always, as soon as we find out, we have to let you know. That's our responsibility. I am pleased to let you know that we issued an unmodified opinion on the financials and the performance audit. So that's good news there. Again, we discussed with management before we come out and do our audit to conduct it. So we do the inquiry. We plan out when we're going to come out and test the transactions. We communicate everything to management, and then they provide us with all the support, and then we perform our procedures. There were no consultations, no disagreements, no difficulties. We received the appropriate representations, and that's when we were able to issue our audit report. No significant accounting policies or changes here. The only estimate would have been for accounts payable. Again, that's pretty straightforward. Tim's office gets the invoices, they review them, and they look to see which period that they really belong to, and then they book it in their system. So there's not a lot of judgment really there. It's just it's pretty straightforward. In regards to the financial audit piece, we look at the internal controls, because we also have to issue an internal control report for the bond proceeds. We test the transactions, we compare to the contracts. The risk with bond audits and bond proceeds, we have to look for conflict of interest in any change orders, because that's where the risk really is. So we look for any time there's a change order, we want to dig into that. We want to know, did they follow the district protocol on how to go ahead and get that authorized. So again, I wanted to point out there were no findings. So again, that's not only important for you guys here, but the community, because this is taxpayer money. So no findings, no significant adjustments or disclosures that are not included. So the financial reports that we issued, they're complete. There's nothing that's not reported that should have been. So the audit opinions are located on pages 1 and 2, and you'll see again it's unmodified opinion. It's the best opinion you can have. Pulled out the balance sheet to show you. So this is where we ended, and I think Mr. Siles also pointed out that we had total assets of 16.3 million. We had accounts payable of 1.1 million. That's just basically invoices that came in right as we closed. But you can see the total fund balance there, 15.193. That entire amount is restricted for just the Measure S projects. So how we got there, you'll see the number at the very top there. Other local revenues, this is just basically interest. So the money that's not spent, that's sitting in the Cashin County Treasury, it's earning interest. So we made $150,000 of interest on the unspent funds. And then during the year, almost $5 million were spent on those projects that were outlined in the previous individual's presentation there. So we started the year with 18.5 million. We ended with almost 2 million as of June 30th, 2021. So the performance audit, we have to then make sure, again, we have to look at all the transactions that took place between July 1st and June 30th, 2021. And we have to basically test a representative sample to make sure that these proceeds were spent in accordance to the bond measure text. So our firm methodology is to test at least 85%. So we want to get the most testing done, just to give you guys peace of mind, knowing that the district is doing what they're supposed to be doing with these proceeds. So we looked at the bidding process, we looked at the change orders, we traced expenditures to the supporting documents, and we concluded that all of the expenditures that we tested were in line with the bond measure text. So that's what you want to hear from the performance audit piece. So again, no matters reported with the internal control, no matters reported there either, so no control deficiencies. So all in all, clean sweep with the bond audits. So there's two audits that go with the bond audit. There's a financial audit and there's a performance audit, and then the control report. So again, wanted to thank Tim, Victoria, and the rest of the district staff for their assistance with the audit. Again, there's a lot of work that goes into this, but they did a great job with tracking everything and having all the necessary documents and providing it to us in a timely manner. So with that, I'll leave it to you guys for any questions.
Any questions? No, nobody? Okay, then, thank you, Mr. Dole. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, Mr. Rayhill, and your team for putting all these pieces together of the puzzle to make this happen. So appreciate it. So right now we need to, is there a motion on the table? Can I get a motion on the table?
I move to accept the audit information for both the Benicia Unified School District bond and the Benicia Unified District financials for our.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
President Zeta.
Yes.
Trustee Moss.
Yes.
Trustee Perucci.
Yes.
Trustee Maselli.
Yes.
And Trustee Grubbs.
Yes.
So without further ado, I am going to adjourn us. It's 9:01. I want to remind you that the next meeting is February 3rd. And thanks for hanging out with us tonight if you're still watching. Thank you so much. Good night.